This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com, and this is my second attempt at my Wrestling Observer review for last week. I did do one late last night, but I accidentally deleted it, so only the live people saw it, and it was a 420 review, but this is just going to be a normal one because it's early in the day, but there is some other news to add that came out today about SWE Fury, which I covered their event Saturday night in Greenville, Texas, that featured 2 title changes, the Blood Hunters Texas debut, and a lot of other stuff that I'll talk about later. But their next event, it was announced today, is going to be February the 6th in Irving, Texas. So you can look forward to that, and I'll plow through the news. I won't give it in as much detail as last night. Nothing in pro wrestling trended on Google last week. The only combat sports thing that really trended was UFC 256, which was number 3 in the Google trends with 550 searches. Zeus passed away, which I already reported on extensively last Thursday. He was found dead in his home in Marina del Rey, California. You may remember him from a lot of movies, such as The Fifth Element. He was in a movie with John Candy. He was in a Quentin Tarantino film, Jackie Brown, which was my favorite film that he did. Tons and tons of movies. I believe he was in even possibly one of the Batman movies. There was a lot of films he was in. He was also in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Matlock, I believe even Walker, or no, never mind. I got it confused because Trevette from Walker, Texas Ranger was also in Matlock at one point. Trevette played Matlock's assistant, but he was in a lot of stuff, and he was a great guy. There is a full shoot interview with him on this channel, and he was only 62 years old when he passed. Apparently, WWE is sending Keith Lee and Otis to the Performance Center now every week for more training. Guess they feel they're not performing up to expectations. Triple H has hinted that The Undertaker is going to start working at the Performance Center in 2021. Sanjay Dutt has been moved down to producing NXT after working as a producer for Raw and SmackDown. Eva Marie, who's 36 now, is back training at the Performance Center. Apparently, according to the Wrestling Observer Radio, there hasn't been a clean finish in the main events of Raw and SmackDown in the past 7 main events on those shows. The last clean finish on one of their flagship shows was November 23rd. Raw last week did a 0.51 rating. SmackDown did a 0.59 rating. NXT did a 0.17. Miz and Mrs. did a 0.13. Total Bellas did a 0.14. And AEW had their highest rating in over a year, 0.45, bringing back Shaquille O'Neal and Sting to the show. They're doing Crash TV now to try and get ratings. They had been down in the 0.2s numerous times this year, from starting in the 0.6s last year, and with the addition of Sting and Shaq, they managed to get a 0.45, which is what they consider good. And keep in mind, Raw only got a 0.51, so they didn't do too much less than Raw. In other AEW news, according to Kevin Sullivan and some other people I talked to at the SWE Fury event that actually know Cody Rhodes a bit, apparently he hates me, which I find very funny. Renee Young and Jon Moxley are going to have a girl. CM Punk, as I already reported, spoke to Renee Young on her podcast last week and said he'd be open to coming back for a huge amount of money or the right storyline. His value was greatly devalued during those 2 beatings he took in the UFC. The second one was against another 0-1 fighter that hasn't fought since. He was an accredited member of the media. It's hard to look at him as a world champion caliber guy when he's been exposed as not having real fighting ability in such a public way. But one thing CM Punk also said in that interview was about wrestler, WWE calls themselves a family, and he denies that any wrestling company is a family because wrestling companies don't care about you once you're not working for them anymore. All those people that were released and furloughed by WWE during the lockdown, were they part of the family? WWE had record revenue the past 2 quarters. They made more money than I believe ever, yet they got rid of a bunch of people, which I understand it's business, but it is business. It's not family. And as CM Punk mentioned, a lot of wrestlers will stab you in the back. So I do agree with CM Punk on that. In other wrestling news, the title changes that happened on that SWE event on Saturday was Christy James defeated Miranda Gordy to win the SWE Fury Women's title. Rodney Mack became the new SWE Fury Television's title, and Tim Storm fought the Murder Hawk Lance Archer and retained his SWE Fury heavyweight title. And I actually liked Lance Archer. I met him backstage. It's just unfortunate that they jobbed him out to Cody and AEW so quickly, because honestly, they ended up giving the TNT title to this Darby Allin. As Piper comes up to say hi from my lap. But they ended up giving the TNT title to us little guy. But I don't understand why they didn't give it to Lance Cade, who is huge. Or sorry, not Lance Cade. He's passed away. Lance Archer, who's huge and legit looking. And I didn't see his match against Tim Storm because I was conducting interviews backstage all night. But the crowd, which I think was 450 plus, was the biggest crowd they could have according to regulations in Texas. They were going nuts for that match. And I just find it weird that they wouldn't have let Lance go over Cody. But whatever, I'm not booking at AEW. And Blood Hunter, Great North Wrestling star, also made his SWE Fury debut, and he was victorious in a handicap match. They do have a television show on many of the CW network affiliate stations where you can check them out. They're also on some other affiliate networks. They have an hour weekly television show and top-notch production there. I think there's a lot of potential for that company, and they will be sending me some matches to air on the Hannibal TV from that show. And I did about 15 interviews backstage. I already posted the Kevin Sullivan one. I did a lot of others that I'll be posting, including an extended one with Charlie Haas, who looks totally different now. He's gone back into amateur wrestling as a coach, and I really liked him. President Trump presented Dan Gable, who's 72 now, with the Presidential Medal of Freedom on December the 7th. It's the highest honor a president can give a civilian. I did an interview with Dan Gable, and he's one of my heroes, so congratulations to Dan Gable. In UFC news, UFC on December 5th did a 0.22 rating on ESPN2. Dana White told TSN here in Canada that the company has conducted 26,300 COVID tests, and it cost the company $17 million so far to do those tests. Khabib has purchased a Russian promotion called Guerrilla Fighting Championship change the name to Eagle Fighting Championship. And he has the idea of wanting to make it a development territory type thing for Russia, for the UFC. In boxing news, it's official. Floyd Mayweather Jr., who appeared against Big Show at one of the WrestleManias, can't remember which one. He's coming out of retirement at 43 for an exhibition match against Logan Paul, who's 25. Don't confuse him with Jake Paul, who recently had a very impressive knockout on the Mike Tyson, Roy Jones Jr. card. But Logan Paul is an incredibly famous YouTuber. So the people that want to bash these gimmick matches for boxing, they're drawing. The Mike Tyson, Roy Jones Jr. card got over 1.2 million pay-per-view buys. To put that into perspective, Starrcade 97 with Sting and Hogan, which may have been the peak of WCW's popularity, it got 700,000 pay-per-view buys. And there was a lot more people buying pay-per-views in those days because there was less ways to illegally stream stuff. But like, as long as these matches are getting huge buys because they're using people that are really famous, they're going to keep doing them. And I don't have any problem with it because boxing is a business and these promoters are businessmen and they want to put on the fights that are going to make the most money. Yes, Logan Paul is 0 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw in boxing, and he's fighting the undefeated Floyd Mayweather. But people want to see Logan Paul get his ass kicked, so they'll tune into it. That actually is something I want. Like, I would like to see that match. I don't actually hate Logan Paul or Jake Paul. I think Jake Paul is a great heel. He might be a better heel than anyone on TV wrestling these days in the major companies, in my opinion. So yeah, I'll get into some of your questions. Gabrielle Torres says WCW always has WCW always has great pay-per-views, unlike WWE does today. I really like WCW. I was a big WCW fan. Alan Kesselman, one of our members, says no idea about your woman's name. I don't know. Those guys are talking to themselves. Double S, another one of our great members here. By the way, there's a members interview that's going to be live only to members. It will be posted later to everyone this Thursday with Barry Darso. So our members will get to ask live questions during that interview with former Demolition, Repo Man. He was one of the Russians at one point in NWA. He had a golf gimmick in WCW. He was the Blacktop Bully. Looking forward to that. We've used him in Great North Wrestling. And there is some Demolition matches here on the Hannibal TV. Demolition is now retired, but great guy. Double S claims that Trump walked out in the middle of Dan Gable's medal ceremony. I only saw the part where he was there. You're the first person telling me that. By the way, another one of my fans who lives in Alberta, and I'm sorry your name is slipping my mind right now, but he's one of our regular posters. He said that he ran into Ross Hart at his Ross Hart came into his store last week in Calgary, or I think Airdrie, Alberta, and told him that they're doing a Dynamite Kid Dark Side of the Ring for the next season. So there's a scoop that you gave us. I'm sorry I forget your name, but I am going to be interviewing Ross Hart here in the coming weeks. One of the lesser known Harts, but he always had a good position behind the scenes in Stampede Wrestling. But yeah, apparently there's 100% going to be a Dynamite Kid documentary, and they've already interviewed many of the Hart family regarding that documentary, according to what this guy says Ross Hart told me. And I think his name on here is, I'm not even going to say it because I'm not sure. Alan Kesselman says Dan Gable is the GOAT. I suggest everyone check out my interview with Dan Gable. Tony Jones mentioned Zeus was the Z gangster in WCW. Yes, he was. He sure was. And he was in the Friday movies with Ice Cube. Hurricane Maverick, what's going on? I'm redoing this because I did the last one, 420, with some homegrown stuff that was strong, and somehow I accidentally deleted last night's update, but it's all good. I haven't done an update at 4 p.m. lately, so it's nice talking to some different fans. Couple more questions here. Jeffrey Morales is sad about Zeus. Tony Tron Jones says coronavirus is going to kill the WWF off. They're more profitable than ever. The current product might suck, but you have to remember they have all the archives on the network. They show a lot of the old stuff. They have, I think, something like 70 million YouTube subscribers. So their YouTube alone must be incredibly popular. Alan, one of our members again, says CM Punk might have been the worst UFC fighter ever. I believe you're right. That could have very well been true. And keep in mind, they also did WWE Backstage with him as like the main star of the show, and that was canceled within 6 months. I got a tip on here from Krilling876. Says, which Paul got busted for stealing at the mall and tips me $2. And thanks for becoming a member, Krilling. I don't know. I've only seen some of their videos. I watched some of their training videos for boxing, and they're good boxers. Like, I'm sorry, I've done boxing. I've seen their footwork. I've trained in it. And their technique is pretty good. So if they can kind of live out their dreams and fight great fighters, why not? As I've told this story a bunch of times, I tried to fight Roy Jones Jr. on the UR Fight pay-per-view a few years ago, and it would have happened if the Arizona Athletic Commission had allowed it, because I had the highest viewed video, because the whole gimmick was he was going to fight a fan, but the commission wouldn't allow it. They ended up getting him a fight with like an MMA fighter from Alberta who he knocked out in the second round. They didn't want to allow the fight because there was too much of a weight difference between me and Roy Jones. But the guy that they gave the fight to had something like 12,000 YouTube views for his video challenging Roy Jones. I had over 60,000, so they wanted me. And I'm not saying I would have beat him, but I had a puncher's chance, and I would have loved to have had it just to be in the ring with him. Double S tips me $5. Says Al Snow needs to book Blood Hunter for OVW. I like Al Snow. I haven't seen anything of the new OVW, but Blood Hunter is going to be a regular in SWE Fury, from what I understand. And I think SWE Fury has huge potential, because if WWE really stops doing live events once COVID is over, if it ever ends, which, by the way, it sucks. I was only in the US for 2 days, and I have to do a 14-day quarantine now. Apparently yesterday counted. So I think Boxing Day, I'll be able to go out in public again. But according to Canadian law, you can be fined $10,000 if you don't stay in your house for 2 weeks after going to the U.S. So that's kind of brutal. I mean, they should at least allow me to go and get a coronavirus test, and if I test negative, I can work out in the gym again. But I don't care. I had so much fun covering SWE Fury on Saturday night, and finally meeting people in person and going out after the show and shaking people's hands. Yes, I washed my hands after, but it felt for at least a day we were somewhat back to normal from all this craziness. To be part of an event that had a good crowd and to actually have in-person interactions with people, it's worth the 14-day quarantine for me. And I was really impressed with their event. Carlos Ray tips $20. It says, hope I'm doing well, brother. Thank you for your continuous tips, Carlos. I really appreciate it. While I'm in quarantine, I'm going to work on a bunch of interviews for you guys. Heather Monroe, who there's a match against Taylor Valkyrie on this channel from PCW Ultra. I am interviewing her tomorrow. She's part of UWN, which is on hold right now because of the coronavirus too and LA regulations. But I'm still going to do some interviews for them. And as I said, Barry Darso Thursday, but I'm going to get more. I'm going to work on it right now. Tom is making a funny joke here. David Flair is better than Rick. By the way, Teddy Long really doesn't like Ric Flair. Teddy Long is a funny guy. I got to spend some time with him. He's hilarious. And he really does not like Ric Flair. Another $2 from Krilling876. Why is women's wrestling so much stiffer than men's wrestling? I don't know. I know if you watch the Blood Hunters match from SWE Fury, I'm pretty sure he beat the hell out of those two opponents. I was in the back doing interviews, but I could hear the chops and forearm smashes from the back during his match. So I don't know, but for the reason why the females in SWE Fury are rough, it's because they're being trained by Jazz. She's the head of their women's talent, and I have an interview with her on this channel, a career interview, but I also did another one last night. So great females over there in SWE Fury. By the way, I did do a fan poll on which SWE Fury females people would like to see in Great North Wrestling in 2021. And shockingly enough, Jasmine Allure won by a landslide. This is a 20-year-old gorgeous girl with an attitude. And I did do an in-person interview with her. And she will be coming to Great North Wrestling. And I can tell you, if they let us freaking promote up here, when this ends, I think you're going to see SWE Fury titles defended up here. And possibly even some matches for the SWE Fury TV show taped up here in Canada in Great North Wrestling. So there could, if things get back to normal, there could be some big things happening in 2021. Have a great afternoon, everybody. I'm going to eat something.